In 2007, a man walked onto a stage in San Francisco holding a device that looked ordinary. It had no keyboard, no stylus, no physical buttons, except one. Most people thought it would fail. BlackBerry dominated business, Nokia ruled the world, Microsoft was everywhere. But what happened next didn't just change the phone industry, it reshaped the global economy. Because that device would become the foundation of a company worth over $3 trillion. This is the story of how Apple turned the iPhone into the most powerful product in modern history. Soft piano builds. Archival footage of early 2000s phones. Tiny screens, plastic buttons, styluses. Before 2007, phones weren't smart, they were functional. You called, you texted, maybe checked email. But Apple wasn't a phone company. It was a computer company struggling to stay relevant in a world dominated by Microsoft. And yet, inside Apple's headquarters in Cupertino, a secret project was quietly unfolding. It was called Project Purple. Hundreds of engineers worked behind locked doors. They weren't just building a phone, they were building the future. To understand the iPhone's rise, you must understand the market. In 2006, Nokia controlled nearly half the global market. BlackBerry dominated business users. Motorola's Razr was iconic. Microsoft powered enterprise software. The smartphone market was crowded, but it was also fragmented. Devices were complicated, software was clunky, internet access was painful. There was no seamless experience, and that's where Apple saw opportunity. Apple didn't want to compete on features, it wanted to redefine the category. Steve Jobs believed in something radical. Technology should disappear. It should feel natural, intuitive, human. The iPhone wasn't designed as a phone first, it was designed as a touchscreen computer that happened to make calls. Apple eliminated physical keyboards, styluses, overcomplicated menus. Instead, they introduced multi-touch gestures, pinch to zoom, swipe, tap. It felt magical, but internally it was chaos. Prototypes failed, glass cracked, battery life was terrible. Engineers worked around the clock. Jobs demanded perfection. But Apple wasn't just building hardware, it was building an ecosystem. And that's where the real genius began. When the iPhone launched in 2007, it had no app store. Developers couldn't build native apps. But in 2008, Apple introduced something that changed everything: the App Store. This wasn't just a feature, it was a platform. Apple transformed the iPhone into a marketplace. Developers built apps, users downloaded them. Apple took a 30% commission. Every app sold strengthened the ecosystem. This created network effects, developer loyalty, consumer dependency. The more apps available, the more valuable the iPhone became. The more users joined, the more developers wanted in. It was a self-reinforcing loop, and competitors were years behind. Apple didn't sell specs, it sold identity. Owning an iPhone meant something. It signaled innovation, creativity, status, simplicity. Apple stores were minimalist. Packaging felt premium. Launch lines were theatrical events. Scarcity created urgency. Long lines created social proof. The iPhone wasn't just technology, it was cultural currency. And that emotional branding allowed Apple to charge premium prices. While competitors competed on price, Apple competed on perception, and perception wins. Apple's strategy had 4 pillars: vertical integration, ecosystem lock-in, premium pricing, and global supply chain mastery. Apple controlled hardware, software, and services. iOS worked only on Apple devices. iMessage locked users in. AirDrop connected devices. iCloud stored data. Switching became painful. And when services expanded, Apple Music, Apple Pay, iCloud subscriptions, revenue diversified. The iPhone wasn't just a product anymore. It became the engine that powered everything else. At its peak, the iPhone generated over half of Apple's revenue, one product driving the largest company on Earth. Apple mastered global distribution. Partnerships with AT&T launched exclusivity in the US. Carrier subsidies made the phone seem affordable. Manufacturing scaled through Foxconn. Marketing campaigns dominated television and billboards. The design remained consistent, minimal, clean, recognizable. Every September, a new release. Predictable, anticipated, engineered hype. The iPhone became ritual. It wasn't smooth. Antenna-gate, battery controversies, competition from Android, Samsung lawsuits, market saturation fears. Critics predicted decline, but Apple adjusted. Larger screens, multiple price tiers, services expansion, wearables like Apple Watch. The iPhone remained central, but not alone. And that strategic evolution kept growth alive. In 2018, Apple became the first US company to hit $1 trillion, then $2 trillion, then $3 trillion. And the iPhone was the foundation. A device that began as a risky gamble became the core of a global empire. Apple didn't invent the smartphone, it reinvented it. And in doing so, it redefined modern business strategy. The iPhone succeeded because it simplified complexity. It created emotional attachment. It built an ecosystem, not just hardware. It leveraged scarcity and hype. It controlled the entire experience. It prioritized user experience over features. Apple didn't win by being first, it won by being better, and by thinking long-term. In 2007, the iPhone looked like a gamble. Today, it's a symbol of modern life. It reshaped communication, photography, business, entertainment, and even social behavior. It turned Apple into a $3 trillion empire. But perhaps the most important lesson isn't about technology, it's about vision. Because sometimes the companies that change the world are the ones bold enough to redefine it. This was the story of how Apple built the iPhone into a $3 trillion empire. And this is Brand Story Lab, where we uncover the stories behind the world's most powerful products.